Hey, and welcome everyone to another episode of the Tim and Jim Show. I am Tim Sohn with Sohn Social Media Solutions, hanging out here in the woods in Pennsylvania. And I love to produce live stream shows and virtual events for businesses and nonprofits and entrepreneurs that want to make a positive impact. I'm so excited for today's show. But first, I'm going to turn it over to my trusty co-host, Jim Fuse. How are you, my friend?
Tim, it's great to see you. And of course, right, you always have to remember. So if I want to look at you today, I have to remember to look this way.
Yes.
And so it's always some of the fun things of kind of playing the was it the Brady Bunch or Hollywood Squares, where you had to figure out which way to look to see people. And no, it's an interesting day, right? It's Groundhog Day,
Shout out to
Hoxie Phil saw his shadow, so apparently 6 more weeks of winter. And my childhood team, I guess still adulthood team, Washington, formerly known as the Redskins, and the football team is now the Commanders. I'm not really sure what to think yet.
They changed the name.
Changed the name today officially on Groundhog Day of all days. So sometimes I'll feel like the movie Groundhog Day and say, did they really name it that, or was it a dream? But I also want to
going on today.
Give a shout out to one of my good friends and his wife, Doug Keating, and his wife Kim, who their birthday is today. Now, both their birthdays is on Groundhog Day, so that's kind of neat.
Wow.
So I want to give a shout out to a childhood friend. We've been friends for decades, and we grew up watching the Redskins. Yes, I said it. I know I'm going to get banned from all these social channels because I said a name I shouldn't say, but it's an adjustment, right? But I think the thing about the Commanders, it kind of fits into the fact that we have Jan here today, because Jan and I actually met in the Marine Corps when I think I was a major and he was a younger man. And we worked together on some military things involving money. And so part of me is like, as a Marine, and Jan is as a Marine as well, we take pride in what we do and we don't like to lose. And so a team that hasn't won a playoff game in 30 years to call themselves the Commanders better get their act together. That's all I got to say about that. Because otherwise, they're just not giving Washington and people that are true Commanders a good name. So that's all I got to say about that. But let's get into the show. Today we've got a very important topic, and it's the importance of personal finance to your small business. And Jan, in his post-Marine Corps career, has now become Money Coach Z, which is a pretty catchy name and a great way to brand yourself. So Jan, it's great to have you here today. And so tell us, how did you get to this point in where you're now doing this new thing? It sounds like you're like us, right? You want to help other people succeed, right? That seems to be, I think, sometimes it's not about, no pun intended, the money. It's about helping people succeed.
No, yeah, you're right, Jim. I want to start off. I want to say hi to everyone out there and appreciate Tim and Jim. You guys give me the opportunity to come out on the show and talk with you guys. It does feel a little bit like the Brady Bunch, right? I'm looking up. Oh, hey guys,
hello down there.
I'm down here. You're up there, huh? But yeah, so all right, Jim. You started with the Washington football team. Now the Commanders. Got to throw my plug out. Pittsburgh Steelers fans since '79. Kind of dating myself as a kid. Kind of got into it when my parents first moved to this country. They're both German immigrants. They moved to Pittsburgh. Even though I was later born in Connecticut, but honestly grew up in Virginia, as we talked about. But that kind of clung to the Steelers late '70s and have been ever since. Some good years, some bad years, right? But anyway, I just want to throw that out there. But getting to your question, Jim, of kind of why I'm doing this and what led me here, it kind of always, and you don't do 30 plus years in the military, let alone the Marine Corps, unless you've got a heart to serve, honestly. And so, I always wanted to do that when I was a kid, right? I just, the opportunities this country gave my parents, they came here, they got married, and then they could, literally moved to the U.S. through Ellis Island, and the opportunities. So I always wanted to give back. Like, what can I do? I need to serve. It just happened to be the Marine Corps. I started out as a young enlisted Marine. It was burnout in college, didn't want to stay in college. went in, worked my way up, commissioning program. We ran into each other back in probably the late 2000s, I think, shortly before you retired. And then, I was chugging along up until 2020, and I just over 30 years of active duty. Great opportunities, loved it. So many different people, opportunities to do different things. And in the Marine Corps, like you, right, we had kind of our specialty was financial management. And so, I've got my degrees that are focused in business finance, but for me, it was always about personal finance and really getting into that. And you don't get that when you're getting a business or finance degree in college, because that's all corporate finance based. So actually, I can remember back when I was a young Marine, like 22 years old, and I heard about a financial seminar, and it was this little catchphrase that you still hear today: buy term, invest the difference. Most folks know what that is. If you're not, it's simply a quick slogan of just buy term life insurance. It's cheaper, and then invest the difference that you pay compared to, buying a universal whole life policy. Invest that into some good mutual funds, right? And it's just a very bare bones catchphrase. And so that started my personal journey into personal finance. And as I did that, it just really became an interest. And over the years, I've helped family, friends along the way in the Marine Corps outside of that, just as I could. And I started seeing that, just like I never saw it coming up through school. It's like the personal finance, you just never taught that. And to this day, very few schools, whether that you're in high school or a college, have any kind of programs or not even a degree program, but just required to do that, right? Why don't we have a personal finance 101 that every freshman has to take with English 101 and Psych 101, right? And your basic math and all that, right? I mean, it's just not there. And it's so important because everybody needs that. And so as I was transitioning from the Marine Corps, I was really looking like, well, how can I continue to help people? I love teaching. I had one opportunity in the Marine Corps to teach at the Naval Postgraduate School, and really, really loved that. And being able to kind of see that light bulb come on when people start getting concepts, right? And just, so how could I do this? And initially I looked at, financial advising, being a financial advisor, and that's kind of what people think about. But as I kind of looked into that, I realized that, well, you're really not educating or teaching folks. You're kind of like doing it for them. Like, okay, yeah, give me your assets and I'll either invest it for you, assets under management. I'll recommend, and, I'll make a commission off selling you these insurance products that you need and all this. And that's just not where I personally wanted to go. And so actually it was just in the last 2 years finding out about the financial coaching space. Which is relatively new. There've been business coaches and life coaches out there. But, and so that's, some folks are familiar with that, but it wasn't actually, and I'll give a shout out to Dave Ramsey and his organization, Ramsey Solutions, right? They're out there and they've really got in that space to help people get out of debt, get a good financial plan down, for their lives. And so it doesn't matter that you may be thousands and thousands of dollars of debt, right? There's hope and there's a way to get out of it. And the problem is, again, going back to, you just haven't been taught how to properly manage your finances. And so kind of now applying it to, kind of some of the audience here in small businesses is, even more important. Everyone should obviously have their household finances in order, right? Understanding their budget, where their money's going, and have a plan forward, right? To minimize that debt and to increase their assets, right? As they're looking at retirement planning, estate planning, right? Make sure they're protecting their what they're saving and investing with the right insurance products, all these things. So as a financial coach, I get to kind of look at that whole realm and help people, but I'm not actually selling them anything, taking assets under management. I'm there as the coach, right? Just as we talk football, right? I'm on the sidelines. And, you're the quarterback. If I'm coaching you, you're out there doing it. We've practiced. I've gone over things, taught you, mentored you, but you have to do it, right? You have to execute out there. I'm not going to take that and do it for you, which I like, because I want you to learn. That's part of what, what I really focus on is educating people, empowering them to take control of their financial life. And as a business owner, right, it's even more important because you got to get your financial house in order, right? Your personal finances before you can get your business finances. Because now you're adding a whole another layer of things, whether you're a sole proprietorship, an LLC, you formed a corporation. Now you've got to deal with that entity, right? And understanding your business finances.
Right.
Yeah, so
And
I think that yeah, Tim, I was gonna say I think that leads really well into our first question. And do you want to take that, Tim?
sure, absolutely.
All right.
So, what keeps people from getting a handle on their personal finances?
So, first off, like I mentioned, they don't know. They're not taught. So think about it. When you're not taught something, how do you learn it? And this is how most people learn about finances, investing, budgeting, insurance. It's the school of hard knocks. It's live and learn, right? It's you learn through your life lessons. And often that's a lot of mistakes. And when it comes to money, right, that can be very costly, those mistakes, right? You don't want to do that,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what they just don't know. And so they're going through life and they get so, ingrained in their lives, and so many things are going on, and they're working, and they got family and kids. And so it's like, okay, you need to focus on this. And it's the fact that we're not teaching it in high school, really. There's a few schools that will do that and have that. And that's great, right? But it needs to be part of the curriculum. In colleges,
Yeah.
right? Where's the personal finance 101? So for me, those are some long-term things that I'm going to look at getting more involved in as well. Looking at as I can give back and what I can do to help people. But that's the biggest. And the second thing is they get afraid to face reality, because a lot of folks are afraid, like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I don't know what's coming in and going out. And a lot of folks will know what's coming in more so. They know what they're making, right? They're tracking how much money am I bringing in, but where's it going out, those expenses? And people are afraid to take accountability a lot of times and really look at that, because then it's often could be life-changing. Like, oh my gosh, I spent $500 a month eating out at restaurants. Wow. Right. I need to cook at home more. Like I spend $40 as a couple going out to eat, and I could make a meal at home for $5, $6, right? Just in his example, but that's the other thing that really keeps people. And unfortunately, you see a lot of people, it's not until they get so bad, so far in debt, and realize that something bad happens, like they're almost going to lose their home, or they can't make the payments, that they realize, I need help, right? And that gets them to really forced to learn.
Yeah, and I think Alexandria brings up a great point. That holding her back was anxiety around money, and I can definitely see that. And I think that sometimes where that comes from is maybe the environment you grew up in, right? Because I think, to your point, Jan, people don't always talk about, like, I can say in my household growing up, my parents never talked about money. It was more, my dad would talk about how hard he was working and how he's making all this money because he was working overtime. But I think it's because he had a lot of bills that we didn't know about. And I don't know, Tim, if you feel the same way as far as growing up. I mean, and not really, not being taught. Like, I was amazed in today's age. My stepson, who is in college, had not been taught how to write a check.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I mean, my parents never talked about money very much. I mean, I know my mom was a stay-at-home mom until we were in kindergarten, and my dad always worked late for the most part. And I know they didn't make a ton of money, but they made the most of what they had, and we were always happy. And but they never talked about money much, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's what you'll find out is most people, it's just for one reason or another. And right. And like Alexandra's question, or her comment about, anxiety around money. Well, there's a lot of reasons you have anxiety about money, but one of the biggest ones is, right, you weren't taught. And so now if you're not, you go out in the world, right, and suddenly you've had credit card debt from college and maybe student loans, and you're trying to buy a house, finally got a job, and you're making a car payment. And right. And now you realize you need this kind of insurance and that kind of insurance. And right. And if you're not sure, don't know about them, what do I do? What should I get? I don't know. Right. So again, it's the, not knowing is causing a lot of anxiety for people. And again, I think it's just a travesty that we don't do this in our schools. We don't teach it.
Yeah. And I think too, even going back to the whole, like, when you talk about, like, one of the biggest things that I think a lot of people are dealing with that have gone to college is college debt, because I remember reading a book many years ago talking about how if you wanted to be a school teacher in some aspects, why would you go to Harvard, which is, a six-figure education, when you're not going to make that as a school teacher? But we get caught up in this labeling thing, so to speak, of like, oh, I got to have a degree from this place to do this or that. And in some cases that's true. And I think now we're seeing everything from with what's happened the last couple of years, people are kind of saying, well, wait, why am I paying all this money to go to college? And businesses like Google and others are saying, you know what, we can take people straight out of high school and train them. And now, and so now we get into the debate, right? Which from a, I don't know, any kind of finance standpoint to say, oh, we're just going to forget all this college debt. There are ramifications, right? There's really nothing is free. And so it's fascinating to see how that works. But yeah, I mean, and I don't know if either one of you has ever, I got into them a long time ago, the whole Rich Dad, Poor Dad series of books.
Oh, yeah, Richard Kiyosaki.
Yeah. And that's the sort of thing I think that is, they even have like a cash flow game that could be taught to kids and make them understand how to handle money at a young age. But I think, people are, I think it kind of goes back to Alexandria's comment of anxiety. Like people are afraid to talk about it, right? And I remember, Tim, we had Kendra Mears on our show, I think a couple years ago, and she talked about, like, even in her case, right, getting into a mindset of you deserve to have abundance when it comes to money and not feel like you got to continue, I mean, because how many times do we hear the whole, living paycheck to paycheck mentality? Or, Jan, I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The Millionaire Next Door, right?
Yeah.
Living below your means as opposed to keep up with the Joneses. And when you read that book and you think about it, like if this doctor lost his job tomorrow, he would lose everything because he spent all this money trying to look good. And I think that's a challenge. That's a challenge on the personal side. I mean, what do you think, Tim? I mean, what have you seen? I mean, I think we see that sometimes even in social media with these people that make these appearances, but they're really struggling just to get by.
Yeah, definitely. I think, on social media, you never really know how somebody is really doing behind the scenes on social media, right? You could make a great appearance, you could show up on live shows, you can have all the fancy branding you want, but you might not have your finances in order, right? Or your business might not be thriving, and that's okay. I mean, we're all at different points in our journeys, but I definitely agree with you there, Jim.
Yeah. So let's go. Go ahead. Yeah.
Great comment there, Jim, about living, within your means. And that is the biggest thing I see is folks see that it's the marketing. And it's even now with the internet, social media, right? Companies, businesses are out there marketing, to folks all over, right? And you feel like, oh, I've got to keep up, right? What does everyone see on social media? The best things, right? Oh, look at me, I'm on my great vacation, right? Oh, look, here's me in my brand new sports car, right? And people feel like, oh, I need to have that. I deserve that, right? And they extend themselves. And it's just basic discipline, right? Understanding what you make. And really, it's kind of funny when you look at it. You mentioned the doctor, right? That in essence has no net worth, is broke, because even though he makes a lot of money, it all goes out, right? So you could have someone that makes $50,000 a year, and they may have a great net worth $1 million because they've lived below their means and were able to save and invest that, right? So you don't have to have a huge salary in order to increase your net worth to have, that money invested and saved up. You can do that through, every range of salary. So it really focus on whatever you're at, right? Living below that and just being judicious about saving and investing, part of what you make.
Yeah. So let's go to question number 2 that we had. And that is, what steps should you take to get your personal finances in order?
So I'll quickly go through some basic things. So first, I would tell you to educate yourself, right? And whether that's, looking at taking some classes on personal finance, taking courses, just researching some of the basic topics, looking about budgeting, about understanding, some of these simple concepts, understanding stuff like insurance, right? Understanding what savings is versus investing, what type of investment products are out there. How do you save for retirement? And a lot of information, right? It's so easy to just Google, right? And between YouTube videos on stuff you can figure out, or just articles out there. I mean, that is your first step. But again, then going back to is getting your finances in order is living below your means. And you need to do that. You need to figure out where you're at, right? So I always start folks out with do a budget right now. And folks will get scared and go, oh gosh, I don't know. I don't want to make a hard decision. Well, you don't have to make a hard decision at first. Really, you're just recording what your money coming in versus money going out, right? You have to understand, where that money is going before you can make any real informed decisions about it. And a lot of folks don't have a clue. They don't realize how much they may be spending on their coffees at Starbucks, right? Eating out at restaurants, 5 times a week, right? Whatever that may be. Everyone's different, right? They have things they like to do, and doesn't mean you have to stop it, right? But first you have to understand where you're at. And then on that same point, do your budget, look at that, and then that will give you insights. The next thing is do just what's called a net worth statement. A business calls it a balance sheet. It's simply looking at your assets minus your liabilities, right? And that's simple. I'll take a house. I've got a home that's worth $300,000. What's my mortgage on it? $250,000. Well, I have $50,000 in equity. I have $50,000 right there in the house, right? What's my car? I've got a $35,000 car. Oh, wait a minute, I'm upside down. I owe $40,000 on it. Oh, there's minus $5,000, right? So now taking that away from the $50,000, right? And you're just listing those assets that have a value. And then, obviously your savings, investment accounts, right? What are all those? And then what are all those debts you have, right? And it's easy to do it when you start with like homes and cars that have an associated loan with that asset, right? But then you go into like the other things, the student loans, the credit cards, personal loans, right? Look at everything to see where you're at. You've got to do that first, and then you can go down the road, right? Get your emergency savings accounts done. Start focusing paying off all that debt. And there's just ways to go through that and do that. Then you start with a full emergency savings account, start saving for retirement, right? And that's, we got to go down the road from there.
Yeah. And I think sometimes what I see like with businesses, people think like, oh, if I'm going to start a business, I need to be given money, right? Like I need to get a loan or a grant to start my business. And they haven't even put their own personal finances in order. And I think that leads to why we see a lot of business failures in the first 5 years, because, and Tim, we hear about this all the time where, you'll see these people like, oh, I made $1 million in revenue, but how much did they spend? Right? It might have actually been, 1.1. So they're in the hole. Yeah. So, it goes back to what did you really make as opposed to, what did you generate? And I think, I was amazed. I had a friend of mine whose son had to do a high school project a few years ago. And it was like figuring out what it would cost them to like get their own place. And I think what's different, and it's kind of I don't know if you want to call it a struggle. We grew up in a different time, but now these people are like, I got to have a cell phone and I got to have, streaming, all these things that we never thought of because, cable didn't come out till I was in high school. So TV was free. Didn't have a cell phone till I was 30 years old. But now you got people like they're getting new phones all the time and they think that's a need, right? In some cases, maybe it is, but you don't have to get, as much as I love iPhones, right? You could go get a prepaid phone or whatever to keep your spending in check, or like you said, when you look at how much now it costs to even go to any of your favorite fast food places. I know Tim loves Dunkin', right? But if Tim were to sit there and look at how much he spent on Dunkin' every day, sometimes not that he does.
No, that's a good point.
He could just go buy the Dunkin' coffee and make it for himself at home. And
that's for sure. It could.
So I think, but those are the things, right? It adds up, right? It's like that whole. It's funny. I don't know if you guys ever remember, like if you take a penny, if you were to save a penny and be able to double those pennies every day for 30 days. Which, of course, the problem is where you're going to find those pennies after it gets to be a huge number, right? It's one of those things, especially if you're trying to find them in the street. But I think
just go look for, just go in the streets looking for pennies. There's
making money,
way.
Right?
Yeah. Well, coins are in shortage now too, right?
Sure.
But I think those are great points.
Hit the streets.
But Before we get to this next question, let's go to a word from our friends at StreamYard. And don't forget, StreamYard now has music tracks, even though we're not going to play them.
Yes, background music. And we are back. We are back on the Tim and Jim show with Jan talking all about personal finance today. So where do we go from here, Jim? And thank you everyone who's tuning in. Alexandria and Russ and Gail and all of you are here who are either live or on the replay. We appreciate you. And let us know what questions you have.
Yeah, so before we go to our next plan question, Tim, I do see we have a question from Alexandria, and that is,
yes.
Are there tools that you use or recommend for people to keep track of things, Jan?
Yeah, so, honestly, it depends what you're comfortable with. There's nothing wrong with, all right, we'll go old school, Jim, right? A little pencil and a pad of paper, right? You can do a budget by hand, right? You can do the columns, right? What are my income and what are my expenses, right? Break down your categories, right? Where are you getting? I have active income. I'm working. And maybe you have some passive income, right? Jim and I get military retirement pensions to one degree, right? So there's a passive income, right? You're getting. And what are your expenses, right? Breaking all that down. Your home. What are the expenses with that? Homeowners insurance, right? Maintenance. What about your transportation? I have a car. I might have a car payment, gas, insurance for the car, right? All those things start breaking down your food costs, right? You can do that on paper. Excel. Right. Most folks have Office. Microsoft Excel, right? It works great. And then there's a plethora of other, software out there. There's a lot of good, even accounting software. You can do your own stuff. They're free. The basic ones are online software that are free. Or you can, there's the ones that people hear about, right? You can do, some of those have free versions. You don't need to get that technical. Now, a lot of those, obviously, you could probably use them for your small business. They're great tools to keep track of that, but there's even small businesses that run all their records and track everything with Microsoft Excel. So it's really what makes you comfortable. Don't make it too hard. I always throw people back to the old Nike phrase: just do it, right? Whether how, and there's great apps now, and I throw a plug out to Dave Ramsey, Ramsey Solutions, and with them they've got a great budgeting app as part of their program. So there's all kinds of budgeting apps available online. So whether it's the app, whether it's a regular software, you can just use any of those. And I've used personally just the whole plethora as well, personally and for my business. So don't make it hard. It doesn't, just start your budget, figure it out, put it down on paper. I would tell you, do it first. Put it on paper, right? Get an understanding of what's coming in, what's going out, what you have, what you owe. That'll be pretty insightful. From that, you'll gather a lot, and then you're ready to take the next steps.
Yeah, that's some great advice there. So Tim, are you ready for the next question?
I'm ready.
All right, let me find it here. Here it is.
Yes. So Jan, how does personal finance affect starting a business? What's the connection between the two?
Well, so starting it, I mean, it's kind of a general question. So I'll kind of hit a few things on that. Obviously, and Jim alluded to this, you've got to have generally money to start your business. So it's going to depend, again, on the business, right? Some businesses don't require a lot of capital up front. Some do. If you're doing a brick and mortar, right, that's generally going to require a lot of capital up front to either lease that space, build, buy it, right? Whatever you're doing, whatever that business. Nowadays, you can do something if you're running it at home, online type thing. Can be, much less. But here's the thing: you gotta have those in order. Now, the key thing too is, especially a small business, and especially if you're like the only owner or maybe a 2 or 3 member LLC, if your personal finances aren't in order and you don't have good credit and you don't have some money to put in, if you do need to get some capital to start up, right, to get a loan, some seed money, the banks are going to look, people are going to look and go, wait a minute, you trustworthy, just like you're going out and getting a home mortgage for yourself. The same thing with the business. And if your personal finances aren't in order, that's what they're looking at, right? If you're starting that business, there's no business record of it, right? They're not going to go, oh, well, look, yeah, you know, if you're buying an existing business, it may be a different story, but starting it, right, it's all in you, right? It's your personal finance will determine whether you're going to get that loan. And even if you don't need a loan and you're going to be able to seed it yourself, right? Do you have the money, right? You need to make sure you've saved up enough that now you've got money to seed to start out with those costs, because you don't want to start out just throwing stuff on credit cards and starting out in debt right off the bat, right? So, I mean, it really is as simple as that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. I mean, I know I was fortunate, and I think the other thing, and Tim, I'd love to hear how you started, because I know you went through like a different sort of scenario than, say, me and Jan. I mean, I retired from the Marines, so I have an income. And so when I started my business, it was like I could still pay my bills and I didn't have to worry about those things. Of course, then I went through a divorce that changed things a little bit. And that's the other thing, right? Life happens, right? Life happens.
Right.
And that's where we have to be prepared for those emergencies. So, but in your case, Tim, I mean, you actually left your, if you want to call it corporate job, and became, the stay-at-home, parent.
Yeah.
And then you started your business. So how did you find that challenge, and how did you kind of move forward with that?
I mean, it was a transition. I had worked in journalism at newspapers across the country for more than a decade. And then we ended up here in Pennsylvania, where my wife is from. And we really wanted to be able to have one of us stay home with the kids. And my wife's a teacher, and she'd been at her job. She's at her job now for more than 20 years. So she has, a good salary and great benefits. So I'm really lucky. I'm in the position that I can, have my business partially because, we have that consistent salary coming in from her and benefits as well. So that was kind of the situation. We wanted to be able to have one of us stay home, which I did for 6 years, with Megan, and then part of the time with Caitlin. But then, I mean, it was definitely a transition going from being full-time employee to starting your own business. It's a whole different mindset for sure. Yeah.
And I do want to give a shout out. I think I can find it. Gabe Leal is in the chat here in LinkedIn. Make sure you follow Gabe, because he's putting out a daily newsletter letting you know who's going live on LinkedIn. I think also sharing some of the great LinkedIn audio conversations that are starting to happen. And I'm hoping that we get access to that at some point, Tim, because I actually have been impressed with it so far. And I'm sure, even for you, Jan, you could start to have conversations with people on LinkedIn. And I think, at least for me, and I think Tim as well, that's really where we feel like, for me, Twitter as well, but that's where my peeps are hanging out, is here on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm also. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, definitely. That's where I try to engage folks, and so I will put references out there. What I try to do is on my website at moneycoachz.com is kind of got blog posts that I try to get out there, and I've set, every month I focus on a different topic applicable to the personal finance realm, and so try to get that out there, just get the conversation started. Again, going back to what I want to do, educate people, right? Kind of breaking down some of these issues and topics. And then, so, I will use LinkedIn to kind of get that out with my own profile as well as my business profile. But also trying to obviously now get a little more into video, and I'm, kind of branch out and expand on that as well. But yeah, definitely LinkedIn is key for me as well.
Yeah. And I think too that it's interesting, right? Because I think I've seen, especially in the financial arena, and Tim, you may have seen this too, you as a coach are able to do and say things that people that are registered investment advisors can't. So you have a little bit of an advantage. And I think video, especially live video like we're doing here, really helps you connect with your audience and find those people. And so really just becomes a question. That's why we love StreamYard, because it lets us go live to all these different places all at the same time. So we've shared Jan's website in the comments for you all. Where's another great place that you would want people to connect with you? Would it be LinkedIn, Facebook, any specific place?
Yeah, so I've got both on LinkedIn and Facebook. So I've got Money Coach Z as a profile out on LinkedIn, and then also I'm on Facebook. But really what I do is try to drive traffic right to the website, because what I do is offer folks a free 30-minute consultation. Because I want to find out, right, can I help you out? Like, what's your situation? Can I help you out? Would we be a good fit working together? Right. So that's what I offer everyone. And it's a real quick, less than 2-minute process. It, lets you actually schedule on my calendar right there on the website. So you can find a date and time that works for you and schedule it. And then we'll talk and see how that works. And so what I'll even offer now for folks listening on the show is beyond that. So if we do that, and if you decide to do some coaching sessions, we want to work together, find out that, I can help you out, then I'll offer a 25% discount, if you mention that you heard it on the Tim and Jim show for folks that want to go beyond the free 30-minute consultation. So you just mentioned that in the 30-minute consultation. So again, yes, schedule it around the website real quick and easy, and find a time that works for you. And I just, love to be able to talk to folks to see if I can help you out and improve your life, especially younger folks, right? They have whole lives ahead of them, right? And the changes, the impact that you can make, right? That they'll have all that time to grow. But I mean, even retired couples have talked to and helped out, right? I mean, you're never too old to change, some bad habits or learn some new things, right? And to go forward with it. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like live streaming. It's never too late to start, right? You just got to start. And I think it's the same.
Yes.
Personal finance. You just gotta keep stop making the excuses and get started on fixing that for your or for even for your business, because I think the other mistake businesses make is they don't review their expenses, and sometimes those things keep growing and they're like, well, why are you paying for something that you're not using? And I know every once in a while I have to kind of go through like some of the because right the evil thing now is these subscription services where you pay a little bit of money every month, but that starts to add up. And
exactly, a little bleeding here and there, a little cut here, a little cut here, right? And then all that, before you know it, that $5 a month, $8 a month, $10, $12, right? For all these things, they add up, right? It's like buying that coffee every day at Starbucks for $3, $4 every day starts to add up. So those little things,
Well, this has been awesome. So, Tim, what have you got coming up new and exciting at Zone Social Media Solutions?
Yes. Well, always love producing live stream shows. So if you're thinking about launching a live stream show, or you have one and you need someone to encourage you to show up and to push the buttons behind the scenes, always love working with people on that. Also, we had a great show of Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer last night with Tim McDonald. It was a really, really good show. So encourage you guys to check that out. And then next week we have another amazing guest as well. So looking forward to that. What about you, Jim? What do you have going on?
Yeah, so really got a big event coming up, and you'll definitely hear more about it soon. So Chris Stone and I are going to be leading a full day track at Podfest May the 27th. I believe that's the Friday. And so we're going to be, leading it. We're going to have speakers, different topics regarding becoming an Amazon influencer. It's not just about Amazon Live. So really excited about that. So hopefully all this stuff that goes on cooperates so we can go in person. And then, of course, I will be joining you next month in hopefully sunny San Diego.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Media Marketing World, and we'll get to see
people.
See people, right? It's nice to see people every once in a while. So excited about that as well. But yeah, next week our guest is going to be Lieutenant Colonel Army retired Oak McCulloch, and we're going to be talking about his book and leadership and how that can help you in business. It's a great book, and he's gotten to talk to a lot of people about that. But Jan, I'm glad you're able to join us today, and make sure, folks, that you follow us on our YouTube channel if you're not already, because sometimes we just don't know about this whole Facebook thing, and we love our folks over on LinkedIn as well. We do have a LinkedIn company page on LinkedIn as well for the Tim and Jim Show, so you can follow us there as well. But that would probably mean, Tim, we got to start posting more stuff there. But that's
yes, I was gonna say it's been a while.
Yeah, so that's all I've got. Jan, any final words?
Well, actually, a question. So why is it not the Jim and Tim Show? I want to know.
We intentionally went with Tim and Jim because it sounded better.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true. But
I've always liked Tim and Jim. But
most Marines type
he invited me.
Exert your influence on him, and
he invited me to be on the show. So so Tim was doing this first. He's the one that encouraged me to start pressing the damn button, as Brian fans would say. So.
Great. No, thanks for being and inviting me, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to get out here and hope some folks that are listening had this helped them out, right? Maybe spurring them to seek a little bit more, to really look at your personal finances, right? And then from there, then you can take that and apply it to your business, right? Your business finances as well. So get that in order. Do your budget. Do your personal financial snapshot. Your net worth statement, right? Do that. And then from there, you'll get some insight and go from there.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Have a great week, and we will see you next week. Same time, same channel.
Have a great one, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.